A warm welcome from the Coaches for You family. As you know well, Coaches for You family is a group of coaches from all the parts of the country who have joined hands to support the society at large during these challenging times. Throughout the session, I'll be there with you as the host for the session. I am Shalini. With not much ado, I would want to introduce the presenter for the day, Farah Ismail. And Farah is a leadership coach and a facilitator. And she's based out of Bangalore. Very passionate about helping people to live and lead with courage. From here, Farah, handing over the session to you. Farah, you are on mute?
Yes, I'm coming back on. Hello, everyone. You know, I'm not used to, I'm actually missing face-to-face sessions. So right now, if everybody is off video, I'm feeling really uncomfortable, but I understand. I just want to say a big thank you to all of you. How lovely. I'm seeing some friends. Hi, Adhir, George. Oh, how lovely to see all of you. Thank you so much. I know we can't always get on video throughout the session, but it would be nice to say hello to. I'm really excited to be here because this is a topic that is very close to my heart, and of course I will try to share some stories from my life, from the work I do, and also people who inspire me, and I'm going to invite you to share the same. So we will have an opportunity to connect and interact in this session. All right, let's just get moving. All right, so I wanted to share with you that imagine when we're talking about challenging times, I'm thinking that we are in the time when probably our children and our grandchildren will learn about what happened in 2020 in their school, and you and I will say we lived through this, you know, and we're going to talk about the times when we had fun, probably cooking together or making TikTok videos or whatever you're doing, learning a new language or trying something new, resetting and starting a new business. It's a really interesting time. And when I think about another aspect of the challenging time, it reminds me of a career I had. I don't know if any of you know that, but I've had 3 major careers in my life. And one of the most exciting ones, which you'll see everything will be related to flying and soaring high, is because I used to be flying for Saudi. And when I look, does anyone know what's the shortcut to shortcut button for this? It's not moving out. Okay.
Maybe if you go into a slideshow mode, things would be better for you, Farah.
I'm trying that. It's just not moving. Okay. Okie dokie. All right. Okay. So let's stay with the imperfectionism of all this. So when I'm thinking about this experience that I had in the airline, it reminds me of the times when I was grounded. You know, when the captain says that there's this big storm brewing, so the aircraft is temporarily grounded, and we went through crazy emotions. I mean, for me, that was the hardest. Imagine being grounded in Saudi Arabia and how hot it's going to be on ground. And those kind of frustration and feelings where I think is what we are experiencing now. It reminds me of a situation when you are the captain of your plane and these not so friendly skies is COVID-19 that's really giving us a really tough time. And I think we've reached a point in our lives in this whole experience when we are tired physically, emotionally, etc. So I understand that so much is happening. You know, I don't know who's in the audience, but we're really all stepping up. You know, teachers have to reskill. We have medical professionals who are stretching themselves and really supporting at this time. Mothers who are homeschooling their kids. Oh, thank God I have a 20-year-old. And so much more. And all of us working from home, we have our challenges, right? And so these emotions and emotions that we're feeling are really hard for us. And I think that's what I want to pause here, that these challenging times that we are in, while we are all going through this as globally, I think it's the rarest of opportunities that we have to pause and focus on ourselves, to make a decision of how do we want to get ready when this COVID-19 passes, right? When our flights are ready to take off. So for me, this is a crisis. And these challenging times is not a time when you have to sit back, put your feet up, and let life happen at all. I think it's a time for us to make decisions and to focus on ourselves. And this choice is the choice that I have made over the last 6 months, and I'm sure many of you have. So I want to actually share what are some ways that we can deal with these challenging times when we embrace the situation we are in. And right now, so I'm going to share a little bit about from my inspiration, Brené Brown, and her latest book, which is, I mean, not so latest, but Dare to Lead. So, and of course, some of the work that I'm doing in this space. So I'd love to hear from whoever's in the room, where are you on this? I've put 5 options. This is your first exposure to Brené Brown and the work she does. I'm aware of who Brené is, but I'm not familiar with her work. I've read something about her and her books. I've watched her TED Talk. I'm a raving fan. She's my BFF. I'm looking if there are any BFFs in the room. I'll be very jealous if there is someone who's a BFF.
Farah, can we get the code again, please?
It's 1616653. Can you see my screen?
No,
screen
so that's
is not visible.
The screen is not visible.
Ah, so I'm seeing the screen and I'm chatting away. So looks like, so I'm actually sharing my screen, I thought. All right, I can see only myself now. I was away from this, sorry for that. Ah, okay, here it is. I think you'll be able to see it now. So you can see 8 people have voted. And I'm going to give you just a few seconds. I just want to know who's in the room, how much do you know about courage and vulnerability, about Brené Brown, etc. Shalini, we'll just wait for another 30 seconds and then I'll move out of this.
Sure.
And if you see anything on the chat, if anyone's having a challenge or any other question, let's keep the questions for the end. But if it's something, a burning thing, you know, a challenge, then we can take it.
I think, Farah, would you be able to share the code once again? Maybe write it in the chat there.
It's on the screen, 1616653. Sure. Right on the screen on the top. Absolutely. Ah, okay. So what I'm seeing is that at least 10 of you in the room are going to be experiencing some of her work today. Some who've read. One raving fan. Okay, great. Super. I think you will be supporting me in the session, the raving fan. And I'm going to get out of this because you can continue to vote. I'd love to see finally, but I get a sense of who's in the room. So I'm going to stop sharing this, but feel free to continue typing in the Menti code, right? All right. Okay. So now that I know who's in the room, I'm going back to my slides and hopefully this is going to show up as well. Okay. From current slide. Oh, it's just giving me such a hard time. All right, never have had this. All right, so today what we're going to focus on is, as you can see my notes underneath there, we're really looking at just this topic of what courage is, okay? And I thought we'll have a conversation, so it's a dialogue. We'll have a conversation about what courage means to you, what it's not. Mm-hmm. We could also look at what comes in your way and our way in being courageous. And the last thing is, what are some keys to unlocking courage in your life right now? So I'm not an expert in this, but I'm happy to share what I have tried, and I'm looking to hear from all of you. Whenever I give you an option to share, please tell us, how you're using this in your life, right? And of course, this is the work that I do. And this is something very interesting. 3 years ago, I had the courage to say no to any work. So I took 9 months to create my leadership program called the Integral Growth it was for women. And this is the model that I created with my partner in Hong Kong. And my work is, whatever I'm sharing is part of this, this work that I've created. So anytime you're working with Brené Brown or any topic related to courage, a really important thing is a permission slip. And when I talk about a permission slip, it means what permission would you give yourself today to show up for this experience, for this time that we have, the 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And what I'd like you to do is, you don't need to share this with us, but in your paper, whatever notes you have in your journal, just take 30 seconds to write. What do you give yourself permission to do or to be or not to be on this call today? I give myself permission to be vulnerable and not be afraid to share and expose part of my life. I'm going to give myself permission to listen deeply from what you're saying. And I give myself permission to be imperfect. And you've already seen that happening. Yeah. Take 30 seconds to write this down, because what we're creating together is a container. It's a container of trust, because talking about these things require this. And I will ask someone, if they're willing to share, to open their mic and just like to hear a couple of voices, what they would like to give themselves permission to do on this call today. You can do that right away. Shalini, would you see if anybody wants to unmute and say hello and quickly share what they're giving themselves permission? In fact, you can just unmute and just share. Yeah, Priyanka, go ahead.
I have decided to let myself take every day as it comes without planning a lot for the future and saying, okay, let me just handle each day as it comes.
Okay, thank you. I heard another voice somewhere.
Yes, Farah, Adhir here.
Okay.
Hi, Farah, Adhir here.
Hi, Adhir.
Yeah. So I have given permission to myself to let go, and it's okay not to be a perfectionist.
Okay. Okay. Lovely. Thank you so much.
Farah, we have a couple of responses on the chat as well, where Mateen has said that I give myself permission to participate for insights, not information.
Thank you.
We have Joni Joseph mentioning that permission to let go.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And I'm sure many of you you didn't need to write it here, but thank you for doing that. So I think now that we've said this, I think it's time for us to get started. What is courage? What does it mean to you? So I'm actually going to give you an opportunity to talk to at least 2 other people in this session. So let me just share so I don't have to keep. One of the pre-works that I had sent for this is to write 10 acts of courage. So I'm very curious. If you have written 10, please put +1 in the chat. And if you haven't, just leave it blank. Let me tell you my act of courage, okay? I was writing some of them. Yesterday, I had a call to take on a coaching assignment that would really eat into my time and take me away from my focus area, in the sense what I want to achieve this year. And on the call, while this lady was saying, can you decide and let me know by Monday? And I think it took a lot of courage instantly when I said, can I respond right now? Unfortunately, I will have to refuse. So I said no, and I feel really good about that. I said no to going to a party in our building. My best friend invited 5 of us for her birthday. And I think I was the outlier who said, no, I didn't want to do that. And I was not afraid of how that would make her feel. I did explain it, but I said no. So those were my acts of courage over the last week, many more actually. I want to pause here. Thank you very much for everyone who went into a breakout. And I'm curious to hear a few voices. I'd like to invite at least 2 or 3 voices. Someone who wants to share what emerged in the room, what courage really means after you heard that. So just 2 voices. I think we have time for 2.
So Farah, we have Milind who has written, heard an excellent courage illustration. Milind, would you want to go and unmute and
Yes.
share your story there?
Either you invite the person who shared or you take permission and do it, if that's okay.
Well, I think it's best if the person from whom I heard just a brief illustration of courage, I would like to invite him to elaborate further on his act of courage, because this is a very illustrious person from the Indian Army.
Okay.
And his name is Brigadier Jayant Tiwari. So
right, he's on the screen. Thank you.
Okay.
So Brigadier, would you like to give us the headline of your act of courage?
Firstly, of course, me and Milind were there and only 2 of us were there.
Okay.
So we are only gazing that, I said, we are only gazing that, is it that, by design we are only 2 or, so, but it was a great, knowing each other. And firstly, we, of course, tried to know each other. But, before closing a session, we suddenly realized that we have to, talk something about our courage. We should not become, bad students.
Okay.
So anyway, I just narrated the courage, of course, being an army man. I can say that, one of the, it was an encounter missions where one was faced with the encounters, in the Kashmir area. And that was the act of courage where I got my short chakra. That is one of the things, facing, and I was badly injured, and after injury, you still have to continue with the operation because you are leading the mission. So that's sort of a thing. So I think it speaks a lot about our courage. We realize it only later. Yeah. So that's how it is.
Thank you so much. And I think I love your honesty about using the breakout time to get to know each other more than talking about the act of courage. So that was very vulnerable of you on the call. One more. When you heard 3 stories or 2 stories, what does courage mean to you? What did you hear? And maybe you can write on the chat. I'd love to hear what courage means to you on the chat now. Okay, and we'll just watch the chat and see what people are writing. Courage to me is dash.
Being vulnerable, Nita said, being vulnerable, going at it alone when needed. Adir mentions doing something which was never done before.
Okay.
Brigadier Jain says, being in the moment. Courage to me is to admit and apologize. Some really fabulous inputs coming in, Farah. Stepping out of the comfort zone, doing the right thing, staying your ground, going beyond your fear, going out of the comfort zone, and sticking your neck out.
Yeah.
We have a good one here. And, for me, courage means step up and do what I think can't be done, what's required, be vulnerable. Doing what is right, even though the tide is against me. Acting up on when you believe irrespective of past or future.
I'm reading the next one. There's one, what we could do is we could just use this chat later, but I'm really loving the ideas that are coming. Someone talking about swimming with the sharks without being eaten alive. That looks like a really tough spot to be in. I wonder who those sharks are. Speaking up for
I think, Farah, this is also interesting coming in. Speaking up for your values.
Yeah. And I think there were some before as well, so I don't want to miss those. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, everyone. What courage means to you is really, really important for me to know, because when I think about courage, I think of being true to myself. And when I look back at my life and what I have, the choices I've made, they've all been everything to do with my values. I've been so strong with that I walk with my head held high because I feel connected. I've been living in my values, so that's something that's very, very close to my heart. And I had a friend who I met who came to India for 6 months from the US, and I met her in a yoga class. And I think I learned a fabulous lesson from her. And she said her mantra, that's my word, mantra, but she changed things in her life without any expectation. And one thing that she said was just show up. She said, I'm just going to show up without expecting to meet someone interesting or for an outcome. I'll just show up. I fell in love with that mantra immediately. And so after that, I said, I'm going to show up. And so I must say it was a switch that I changed in my head. So there's a very strong thing in my mind. So there are no excuses. If you say, come and meet me in Koramangala earlier, so I'm in Bangalore, earlier I would make all the excuses. Today, I don't have that in my head because I'm just going to show up without worrying about these things, because I know wherever I go and whatever's the intention, it would be, let's see what happens. So when I think about what courage to me, it's really staying with my values. And I love what others are saying, speaking up for your values as well. All right. So do you have the video downloaded, Shalini? So I wanted to share
a challenge in the download there.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you can hear this video. No? Yes or no? All right. So we had a video that I created with people close to me, friends from all over the world, including from the coaches community, that I created about courage. And that was really interesting. Hopefully we'll share it at the end of this call. Otherwise,
Farah, try activating the sound in Zoom. There's a button at the bottom that says you need to switch on the sound for the video to be heard by us.
I have. It says already it's a computer audio, and I've also tested it and it's not working. So if Shalini can share it later, I've sent it to her, so she would share it before we end this. Cool. So that's okay. We can get back to it in a bit. I wanted to go back to what courage means, right? So for many times we think of courage as something really heroic, you know. And I remember I went for a trek in 2017, and I wanted to share those pictures with you. I mean, that was like a big one for me. No idea what the trek would be like. Prepared a little, but went for this trek. And when I think back, I think it's not the trek and the view or that experience. It was how I enrolled for it. You know, I had to send an entry, just like a 10-word stuff, which said, why should you be one of the 10 women over 40 who would join this trek? And I remember having the courage to write this small little thing and believing that, manifesting it, that I'll be one of the 10. And so I'm just sharing something about me, that one thing that drives me throughout my life has been this, which is my path to my resilience path, is perspective. I am looking at the world with eyes of, with positive optimism. And so when I write and I reach this, did this, I believe that I'm going to be there. So when I look at adversity and crisis and all this situation, how I deal with it, one of the really strong things for me is just having that outlook, the way I deal with it. Yesterday, I was talking to someone and her entire conversation was, I'm stuck. I'm at home, I'm stuck. And I just feel that it's just that shift in my thinking, if I do, about the situation, if I embrace it, then how I show up in my environment with my family will change. So it requires you to rumble with that, you know, with that feeling of why are you there? And I think that's where courage lies. The fact that you can look at yourself and see why you are in that space. So I want to pause here and ask you, when we look at courage, we know that courage is our beliefs. Many people are saying, you know, it's conviction, it's swimming with the sharks, what else did they say? Let me look back. Doing what is right. Yeah, so not going with something that's comfortable, but going what's right. So we know that, right? What comes in our way to be courageous is the key. I want to pause here because I'm going to share with you something really interesting from Brené Brown. But I want to ask you, what do you think stops us from being courageous? One voice. Anyone, just open your mic and tell me, and write it if you feel like. What stops you from being courageous? Fear of failure, John. There's no way you're over 40. John, yes, I'm 21 till I die. And that's a problem because fear of the unknown.
We have some responses coming in.
I'm
fear
reading
of
it.
Consequences.
Fear, okay. Fear of being rejected, fear of failure. Me. Yeah, I'm coming in my way. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I want to share with you what Brené says. So it's very interesting because one of the myths of courage is that courage equals fearlessness. You know, it means that if I have the absence of fear, then I'm courageous. Of course, that's not true because the most courageous, successful people also have fear. What they do is beyond that fear, right? So I want to share what Brené says. She talks about that what comes in our way of being vulnerable, being ourselves, and choosing to be us is not fear, but what comes in our way is this armor that we put on. And I'll share with you 3 of her favorite armors that she talks about. Let me just try and share that in a screen. Today looks like our, okay. All right. I'm going to smile through all this. And here is where I'd like to invite you to think about this, about where you are on this. Oh, okay. I wish today was different, but I can't change it. I've tried all this. All right, so we talked about this, we did this video didn't work. And of course, this is such an interesting thing. When we think about courage, we forget that it is expressing ourselves. It's a heart word and speaking one's mind by telling all one's heart. And so for me, I'd like you to hold this definition of courage in today and start thinking about, when I share the armors that we wear, start thinking about where is it that you have been speaking your mind by telling your heart or not. So what gets in our way of being courageous is this. Look at that. It looked better in a full screen, but it's not moving, right? Okay, so here is what Brené Brown says. She says that what comes in our way is our need for perfectionism, right? And perfectionism is all about that question of what people think. It's completely an external audit. And many times we wear this shield and this whole mask around us, because if I believe that I look, live, and work perfect, I can avoid criticism. And it really keeps me safe. So when I try to be perfect, it's not equal to striving for excellence, because when I'm striving for excellence, it's an internal audit. What I'm trying to do is I'm internally motivated when I'm doing that. It's about me setting goals that I want to achieve, setting values that I want to live by, how I want to show up. So those are slightly different. So I don't want us to get confused by striving for excellence and perfectionism. Perfectionism is really about what people think? That's the only question. So I want to pause here and share that that's the first one we're talking about. And over the last 6 months, when we were going through this experience, I wonder if this was an armor that you wore. At one time, I want to say that in the beginning, I was like this superwoman, and I was doing everything, and I was not acknowledging how I was trying to be great at everything. And so what I did differently was I paused, gave myself permission to give myself some empathy, reached out to a Coaches for You coach, and was vulnerable and shared how overwhelmed I was in this situation. So it wasn't about how the person would think about me. I really changed in changing my perspective about how I was dealing with the initial part of the lockdown. So it wasn't about looking good at all and looking like the superwoman. I can manage everything. So I wanted to say that that's the first thing I did. Hold on with your thoughts, right? I'll share with all three so you can understand what they are. The second armor that we wear is called foreboding joy. Now, what Brené Brown says about foreboding joy is that in the best moments of our life, what we are doing is when there's joy, there's happiness, there's something that we get, we are terrified that we lose it. So what we do is we get caught up in worries, we get caught up in fears and anxieties, and that can really push us away from being vulnerable. For example, in these last 6 months, I've talked to many women, and I remember one telling me that she got this dream job that she was looking for in COVID times, right? And I don't think she was in that joy for even 30 seconds in that call. What she did, she moved into a space of, can I handle this? I'm not sure if I'm good enough for this. So that's what she moved into. So what we do is, when what comes in our way, the armor that we wear, we push away courage, is when we engage in this catastrophic thinking and we think of the worst case scenario. So we really push away joy. And when we can't be vulnerable, this is what we do. So last 6 months, one example from me is that really tough times, but suddenly when I looked around, I noticed that I have some amazing things happening for me. I could work from home beautifully. I'm excellent working virtually. I have that experience. I was on top of the world. My business doesn't have to stop, right? So I don't have to be afraid that I cannot reset. But I was in the space of thinking, I have no facilitation work. How do I rewire, reboot? And I really created a lot of worst case scenarios for myself. So I want to say that I was in this space for a while. I pushed away the fact that I had beautiful things around me and supporting family, etc. And I lost sight of all the gifts that I had. And that really is not very nice to have. I think we ignore if it's right in front of us. And I think the antidote for that is people who show a profound capacity for joy are the ones who practice gratitude. And that is the antidote of foreboding joy. And the last one is very interesting. I'd love to hear what is your numbing strategy as well. When we feel vulnerable, we numb. You know what is numbing? We just want to move away from all the things that are important to us to have the urgent conversation, difficult conversation, and we go and get into things like food, Netflix, alcohol, Facebook, work, gossip, and we can numb ourselves with just moving away from having the conversation, thinking about it, reeling into our emotions. So numbing is a strategy we use, and this big armor that we wear that actually moves us away from connection, and we just find time to do this. So I don't know if you've ever had, gone to the fridge and had 3 bars of chocolate, because that is numbing. 1 bar is comfort, 3 bars is numbing. So we all armor up by doing something, and that's, I think I was sharing with somebody my numbing strategy. My numbing strategy when I want to move away and not be vulnerable, don't want to share how I'm feeling, and I want to hide it inside of me, and I hide it with this shield. I would avoid having the conversation. I would avoid thinking about it. I want to work on it. I would delay it. I would get into some silly things like cleaning my cupboard. I would just go and sit and just do something like that. That's my numbing strategy. So I don't know what's your numbing strategy. I want to pause here. I want to ask you, I just shared with you what Brené says are 3 armors that we wear that take us away from being courageous, being ourselves. And we wear this sometimes, we sleep with them sometimes. Yeah. I want to pause here. I'm sure we have a lot more things that come in our way of being courageous. The fear of failure, like somebody said. Yeah. What is the armor that you wear? If I had to ask you, which is your go-to armor? What is your go-to armor? And I'd like to pause here and put this away so I hear a few voices. What is your go-to armor, if you have to think about it? Okay, I am seeing some in the chat. Immersed in work. FB and WhatsApp funny videos. Acting busy. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anyone wants to switch on their, unmute yourself and share if you feel like it.
Empty myself.
Say that again. Which one are you talking about?
Empty myself.
Okay. You want to tell us more?
So I get to my 2-year-old self with my total curiosity.
Okay.
With the know-nothing self of myself.
All right. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Johnny. Anyone else? How many people on this call? 37. Yeah. Let's hear what else. What are some of your strategies? How else do you stop yourself from being courageous or from being vulnerable? I think Sripad is saying something about a situation. I had a boss. I'll go back to it. Going silent. Okay. Food and the internet. Deadly combination. Yes. So I don't know about you, but in this whole experience, people would find it very funny that others were putting on weight and I was losing weight. So the reason I was losing weight because food is never my topmost on my mind. So I tried to do something different in this period. I experimented with a 90-day program from Mind Valley, and it's been very interesting. Okay, I love your strategies, close to my heart. Okay, so I'm going to share some strategies now because I want to share what are some of the antidotes. And of course, this is not working. Today is not our day. Oh, I've tried everything. Okay, what armor do you protect yourself? So these armors sometimes protect us, we think, but truly what it does is takes us away from being courageous, from being connected to others, and just taking that next step. We are not showing ourselves up. So showing up is really the biggest thing. How do you actually show up authentically? And here are some ways that I'd like to share that we can unlock courage. I'm sharing some of my strategies, and of course, this is just a tip of the iceberg, and I wanted to have this conversation with you to hear yours as well. And it probably might not be possible with the time I'm seeing. So I'm going to quickly go through it, right? Yes. So here is the first one, especially when it's perfectionism, right? So giving yourself the permission to be imperfect. And here is what I did. So I'm showing you this really interesting picture of this swan, because I believe that that's what worked for me. If you've seen a swan walking, right? And they walk very awkwardly. They go very awkward. And the way they get out of their awkwardness is not by beating themselves up or trying to walk nicer or trying harder. They don't do that. Yeah, they don't beat themselves up for being to be a better walker. Some of us do that to ourselves. They just find their way to water, right? And when they slip in to the water, you know that that's where they belong. And I think for me, this is what has worked for me, that I have spent the time to get to know my water. Where is it that I feel the most, I have the most passion, my energy, and what I do for others. So finding your water is really important. So if you want to be yourself, then this whole discovery process is important. So what is the water? What is your water that's going to allow you to sustain in this period? You know, that meaning, energy, momentum, contribution over the long term is a question that I'd like to leave with you. And without having to rush, strain, or feel like a walking swan. So when you get into this space of really deep diving into what lights you up, that's when you become very courageous. You choose, and that's what I have tried in my life. When I write spaciousness and calling there, 6 months ago, when I was in a conference in Malaysia, I never thought, you know, one big word I wrote was, this year I want spaciousness, but I never thought it's going to be forced on me. And so for me, this whole period has been very interesting because I have intentionally looked at what matters to me. And many of you know, I came back to the coaches community because this is what I really want to do. And I felt I found my calling. And yeah, and throughout this experience, I was really authentic that I am shifting one hat to another. And this is what's making me feel really fantastic, that I'm able to serve and add value to a lot of women to unlock courage in their lives. And that's really where I find my biggest passion. And when you do the ikigai, everything really fits in. And I also give myself a lot of empathy because it's okay for me to have taken this spaciousness, to have felt the overwhelm. That's all right. And so perfectionism, this is how I choose to have dealt with it. So I did a lot of stuff, you know. One of my paths to resilience is purposefulness. So there are 5 paths to resilience. And if you know them, they're fantastic. One of them is having a purpose. And so I really worked on my purpose. I also know that like this lantern, this lamp, your values lead the way. So if you can look at what's on the screen, there's a lot of work that you can do to actually look at, are you owning your values? Are you living your values? And what you see on the right is my huge path, which is my vision, which I've created. Its path is planning alternate tomorrows with hope. And that's the vision I have. And that's the vision I help others to get. So that they can be a lot more courageous and get rid of perfectionism and move into what they really can bring in. And yeah, these are the 5 paths to resilience, which is having a clear purpose, having that perspective. So what helps me to deal with the COVID times, these challenging times, is tapping into these parts of resilience. And perspective really is my biggest one. So anytime any of you would like to talk to me or feeling down, you can talk to me and you just change the way you think. And I promise you that, because that's how I look at life. And of course, control is about your emotions, really dealing with your emotions, having someone to talk to, being comfortable with expressing yourselves. Connectedness is having this network, beautiful Coaches for You community and other communities that help you to deal with these tough times. You're not alone, and growth is a big driver for me as well. I wonder which ones are yours. The second thing, how do you deal with, look at me, I've lost track of what I'm saying. Yes, foreboding joy. Of course, I've shared this, that the antidote of bringing joy in your life is really practicing gratitude. And I'm grateful for this opportunity today. I know I'm just passing 6 o'clock, and I'm hoping you'll give me permission to wrap up really quickly in 5 minutes. But the key is bringing this as a daily practice. And what I try to do with my daughter, I have a beautiful 20-year-old daughter, and luckily she's been with me in this break, in this lockdown period and COVID times. She'll leave very soon though. We created a wall of Post-its where we did our gratitude, you know, visibly, because there were all these windows. I said, we're just stuck here. Let's do something that will help us to walk by and just feel really connected to the people in our lives, the moments that I've learned during the day. So I'm happy to share how I do that. It's a really, of course, a gratitude journal. And lastly, very important to focus on those small milestones and victories. And I want to share something with very vulnerable of me. I've not shared this anywhere. And I want to share this with you. I feel, I put some pictures and you'll see that. I took time to celebrate my daughter. So I lost my child 26 years ago, my first daughter. And there were such tough times that so many roller coasters that I didn't have time to grieve. And during these last 6 months, I want to share with you that these challenging times give me an opportunity to get in touch with myself and what's important for me to unlock, to be whole. And it actually happened in a breakout room with someone in Philippines. And here I'm thinking of, I'm sweeping and swabbing and bartan, and I'm so tired. Outside your comfort zone. So what have you tried to do differently over the last 6-7 months? What permission have you given yourself to try? And if you look back at your life, I think you will notice that you have a lot of this. You have done a lot of this. And so you just need to tap into that and choose to stand by your beliefs, your convictions, and take that step. And it's all about that. Leaning into having that conversation, taking that first step, because if you don't take it, come on, you're going to stay in that same zone for a long time. So whatever it is that you want to unlock for yourself, it is time now. This is the time. And lastly, of course, throughout this experience, focus on yourself. The fact that if you find at least one person in your life, one seat of empathy, you don't need more people. Someone who will understand you and will understand, and you can talk to. So self-compassion is the key. You know, where you talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love. Be kind, and that's really what will help you to just be true to yourself and really amazing. And you can write your brave new story. And I don't know if you know, I created, that's what I unlocked. I created a 6-week program for women. I feel sorry because there were some men who said, why can't we unlock courage, courage to soar? And we really did some brave work on that. And about rewriting your story, your new bold story for the year, and just taking life head on. And I wanted to share that video because there are voices of people from all over the world, including voices of some of the women that I have coached. And it touches my heart because their stories of what courage means are fantastic. And of course, this looks horrible because it's not in that mode, but you can't get to courage without rumbling with vulnerability. And that's what Brené says, and that's what I believe. So my mantra is to live bravely, learn from your life story. Your life story has everything. Just believe in yourself. And and that's it. Practicing my values, my decisions have really helped. My values led me to all the decisions I made. So anytime I'm outside my values, I'm not at my best. And of course, the rest, you know, bringing balance and integration in my life and having a supportive community, finding someone who can be there for me as well. Right, so I'm going to pause here, and it looked like it was supposed to be a conversation with you and having more opportunities, but I'm going to invite you to share with what has unlocked for you, and I can send this later. Yeah, I got a really nice poem from Khalil Gibran that I want to share. Okay, so I want to pause here. We are at the end of our hour and over, so we want to apologize for that. And I want to zip and ask you to share what has unlocked for you. What do you see possible for yourself when you look at some of the things that we have discussed today? Happy for you to, actually I have, if you go back to the Menti, there's one more question that I had for you. If you feel like sharing there and we can send it back to you, that would be super.
Well, Farah, I can read some reflections and thoughts which are coming in from the people as well.
Let's do it here. Let's do it here. Let's ignore the Menti. Yeah.
No, but I can see a lot of inputs coming in. People found that the stories have stuck to them very well. So true to the spirit of vulnerability, I think everybody could learn a lot from those stories and they got a lot of reflections from there. So they found the story very touching. The courage to be vulnerable is something which they are taking back with themselves. We had Ila saying that it was very refreshing and inspiring, with the suggestions and some of the tips that you had given. That was a beautiful demonstration of courage that you had demonstrated. Extremely touching. That was a beautiful story to share. So I think vulnerability overall is coming in as, I had Neeta saying that finding my water, that will certainly stay with me. I think that's also.
Rumble with that. Sometimes our road has become stale and we don't want to think about it. So just see what road you're on, and you need to unmake it or remake it. So it's what road you're on right now.
Adir has to say that I'm taking away lots of lessons from the metaphors that you have shared, and the stories will stay with me. Nitali mentioned accepting my imperfections. That's a big one for you.
Yeah.
I think here, Farah, we had a question from Anuradha, and I want to bring that question for you here. She mentioned that perfection could also be higher standards of performance we set for ourselves. Do you think it is always external driven?
Higher standards are usually internal. According to me, I set very high standards for myself. And it's and it's not usually for but there's a thin line. It's not usually for others. I set and having high standards, and if you actually go to Robin Sharma, or they talk about really raising your standards, and that's the way that you can really achieve massive results for yourself. So having high standards is wonderful, unless it you have to actually think about why you're having those. And if it is for you to strive for excellence in doing things slightly differently, or doing it for other reasons than how you show up for others, then it's great. I think I always tell people that you have to raise your standards really high. Yeah. And if you're not there, then you're mediocre. You have to play it full. And so you have to be bold. And if it requires higher standards, do it. That's what I believe. Yeah. And I'm happy to hear others if there's other perspectives. Yeah. But that's where I am. I'm not a master in this, but that's how I live my life. Thank you for the question, Anuradha. And someone has written about Gayatri session.
Yeah, Adir has raised his hand.
Yeah, Farah, can I come in?
Sure.
Yeah, Farah, what is it that I need to do to let go perfectionism? Because at times, perfectionism comes in the way and pushes me back.
Okay. So this perfectionism thing is also a continuum. I want to actually invite you to look at this. It's like a big continuum where we can be anywhere on that, where we choose to be, free from it or really stuck with it. Now, if you want freedom from that, we need to make that long journey from what will people think to I am enough. and it is a long journey. And some of the things that I do in my work is very interesting, and it's about owning your stories. And we create something called the shitty first draft, and that's Renee's work. And I can talk to you offline about how you focus on what are the stories you're telling yourself and changing them forever. So that is one, which is owning your story is really important and changing it. So I think that's it's a long walk, but I think you're on the great path that you already know that perfectionism can come in your way at times. Even for me, perfectionism comes in my way. I mean, I'm terrible at that. I should have showed you my favorite book that I bought from a library, which says Progress, Not Perfection. That's my 2020 book, journal. And so don't ignore your pain and your feelings when you are experiencing that need for perfectionism. You want to strive for how you're seen, probably on social media or in certain communities. I'm not sure, but it's really about knowing that you're not alone in this also. A lot of us, we're all in it together. We all, it's happening not just to you, but to everyone. And being aware of the stories you're telling yourself is key. And I am enough is a space that requires some work, and it really that strong conviction of. So if you go out today and take one step without wondering what the other person will think, without wondering what others will think, you've already started your road to that.
Thanks a lot, Farah.
Adir, I can share with you about writing that shitty first draft, and that will shift everything for you.
Oh, sure.
It's a journaling thing, yeah.
Love to get it.
Anyone else? Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
So, well, no, I do not see more questions or inputs coming in, but I think it's been a wonderful session, and people want to hold on to it and have a lot of questions, I'm sure, but I think we are running out of time and we're exactly.
I know, and I'm going to share the video. Thanks, Anuradha. I'm going to share the Dropbox link. I created it for this, and we have some beautiful voices from friends from the community and people who, few voices, I just got them. And it'll change your perspective of how everybody sees courage, and it will really add to your thinking. So I'm hoping that will be an additional additional thing that you'll do when you go back. Thank you, Rita. I'm enough. Yeah.
Thank you. And so, thanks everyone for holding on to us with
one last thing. If you look at the sentence, I'm dash enough, okay, and that's where we get stuck. I am not. Sometimes we put I'm not. I'm not creative enough. That's my bracket in my head. I'm not creative enough. Somebody will say, my daughter will write, I'm not slim enough, I'm not smart enough, or someone will say, I'm not knowledgeable enough. And that's where we get into this lack space. Scarcity comes in. So if you want to unlock, you have to move from scarcity to abundance. And I think that's, I am is enough, I am enough. Yeah. Creating the narrative. Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm going to allow Shalini to end the session.
Yeah. No, I think loads of learning for all of us and loads of reflection, I would say. Bringing those armors to awareness actually was this, is where the reflections did start off, and then definitely a lot of ways to sort of overcome those armors as well. A wonderful session, Farah. Thank you on behalf of everybody, and thanks to everybody who have joined in. You all did make up 15 minutes more with us because it was an interesting topic and was connecting to us very well. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to bringing in more such sessions. Thank you, Farah. Thank you so much for making it so interactive.
Thank you. Do you have to do any survey or sending it later?
I think we are quite late, but then I would not want to take a minute more from anybody else, but it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And maybe you can switch off the recording. I'll still stay here.